people at Redemption Chapel. Pastor Rick coming to you again to answer another question. This one is not one that was sent in to me, but gets asked of me in passing most Sunday mornings. I'll get a question like this. And the question is this: will Redemption Chapel ever live stream your services? Now, for those of you who are technically challenging, going, wow, what's that mean? What that means is this: will we ever, as live on a Sunday morning, as a worship service is happening, that is being exported over the internet, so that somebody could kind of log on and watch it in real time, watch a full, not just the sermon, but the full worship service? That's the question that comes up. And the answer is maybe, but probably not anytime soon. I mean, it's not a lack of ability, it's a lack of desire. And if we ever do, God would have to significantly change my mind and my heart. So it's not that we're not able to, it's that we're choosing not to. Let me explain why. So there are two questions that really come up with this. The first one is, do I, as a Christian, need to attend church? And the second question related to this question is live streaming the same thing as attending church? And so I'm going to spend the first bit of our time talking about, is there a need as a Christian to attend church? I'll spend most of our time there. So as we get into that question, the first thing that comes up is the difference between the church universal and the church local. So when you become a Christian, you are automatically a part of the universal church, the body of Christ. Is that enough? Is that sufficient? Do I also need to be a part of, a member of, attend, and get connected with a local church? See, that's the real question on the table here. And yes, you need to be a part of a local church. That'll be the answer for sure. Now, sometimes we pull back for that because we go, man, I don't like organized religion. I've been to some churches. I hate them. I don't like it. It's gross. And I would say, you know what? Yes, the local church is very imperfect, which means it's perfect for you because you're imperfect too. Like if it were perfect and you came, you mess it up, right? So yeah, you're imperfect and the local church is imperfect. She is called the bride of Christ. She's got warts, she's got flaws, she's got scars, but she's radiant and she's beautiful. And Christ loves his bride. And so just be careful. If you're in the process of dissing the local church, you're dissing Christ's bride, and he's not okay with that. Don't think you can do that and be in good standing with Jesus. So can I just be a Christian and do it on my own and be a lone ranger? No. You need to be a part of a local church. And we see that biblically. Listen, the Bible knows nothing of somebody being a disciple, a growing disciple of Jesus, and being totally uninvolved in a local church. The Bible doesn't know about that. So what we find is that much of the Bible has to do with letters written to local churches, at least in the New Testament. And so there would be letters written to the church in a specific city. That's being written to a specific group of Christians that meets together as a local church. Romans 16, we'll find that Paul acknowledges, hey, greet Prisca, or Priscilla, she's called elsewhere, Prisca and Aquila, and the church that meets in their house. That's not the church universal. That is a local embodiment church. You see also in Colossians chapter 4 that there's a woman, I assume, named Nympha, and there is a church that meets in her house. It's possible Nympha could be a man. I would have to look that up. But so anyway, the point is that the Bible assumes participation in a local church. And that's why you'll see in the New Testament that the habit of Paul, as he traveled around in Acts, and then there's commandments, that they would go and they would appoint elders in every town. So what you have is local church leadership that formed a local body of believers, and there was an organized local church. And it was expected that you would be a part of one of those. And you really need to, honestly. In the New Testament, we find all these one another passages, one another, like love one another, greet one another, all these things. In fact, I'll give you an example of one of them. It comes out of Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 to 25. And here's what we read there. It says, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. Okay, so as Christians, we're supposed to be engaged with one another. It's community. It's both of us, right? All of us. We're supposed to stir one another up to love and good works. Great. How do we do that? Okay, good. Verse 25. Not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some. Okay, so it's dissing Lone Ranger Christians right there that think they're okay and they're just doing it on their own. No, don't do it, even though it's a habit of some. Don't neglect to meet together, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. And so what you have then in the New Testament, even in that, you see there that not only do you need others, others need you. Don't neglect meeting together so that you can stir up others. So not only are you one that needs to receive in the local church, but you're also one that needs to give, to serve, to spur others on in the local church. We need each other. We're supposed to meet together. That's why the metaphors in the New Testament for the church are all corporate. You're a family. So we have different members and we need each other. You're a body. So the church is one body, but it talks about different parts and how the heart needs the head, who needs the hands, who needs the feet. Like we need each other. It talks about being a building of different parts. So there's a foundation and there's walls and there's a roof and we need each other. So all these metaphors, a flock. So you're not alone. You're part of a flock. I mean, we need each other. We're a team together. And one of the things we do together as a team is we do corporate worship. We're supposed to come together corporately and worship together. Listen, if you will, to Colossians 3:16. It says this: let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. Okay, so there's the word of Christ being spoken and dwelling in you, but maybe that's just individual. Maybe that's just me and my own devotional time, me and Jesus. Now, listen to this. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another. There's another one of those one another's, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. We are called in the new, if you're going to live out biblical Christianity, not the Christianity you get to make up on your own, but biblical Christianity, you are called to assemble and worship. And there's teaching going on, but there's also singing, corporately together singing. And so then when you get to 1 Corinthians chapter 12 to 14, 3 chapters devoted to giving instructions on corporate worship. God's expectation is that we are in a local church worshiping alongside each other, shoulder to shoulder. So we did a series called Know the Story. And you can go on our website, Redemption Chapel, under sermons, and dial way back in time to 2016. And I did a sermon on the church. You can listen to that if you want. But one of the things I came to in that is that based on Acts chapter 2, there are certain aspects that need to be a part of the local church. Let me read you that passage out of Acts 2, because it's really instructive. Right after Christ ascends, the church is launched, and right away, they started to do some things that meant that we're a part of being a part of a local church. Listen to the passage. It says, and they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. And awe came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved. All right. So I came up with a list. And that means there's leadership and teaching, okay? So one of the things in a local church is there are supposed to be identified elders. There is local leadership that you need to be under and submitted to. Hebrews 13 talks about this. Can't get away from it. It's biblical Christianity. There is public teaching of the assembled body of Christ going on there. There's the ordinances. It speaks about communion, the breaking of bread. There's communion and baptism. Like if you don't go to a church, you don't participate in the two ordinances that Jesus gave to the church. Then there's prayer. The need to pray for and with each other. That's a part of being a part of a church. There's assembled worship. I've already talked about that coming out of Colossians chapter 3. And then there is fellowship. Notice they broke bread together, which was communion, but they also took their meals and house to house. They were with each other. They took care of each other. They sold their stuff and hooked each other up. Oh, there was great fellowship. There was joy and gladness and fun. It also speaks in there about large group and small group. They went to temple together, and then they were in each other's homes. So there was a large group gathering, but also small group involvement. There was giving. Doesn't speak of it specifically in this passage, but you see it as early as Acts chapter 4, just 2 chapters later, that they were selling things and giving the money. They'd lay it at the apostles' feet and walk away. They gave to their local church. And then there's mission. They were reaching out and people were being added to their number. Okay, so I just basically built a list of things that are a part of being involved in a local church, and those need to be there. You might be thinking, wait a minute, I thought this was about live streaming. Here's what I've done. I built a foundation of what it means, why we need to be a part of a local church, and what all that involves. Now with that in the background, now we can say, wait a minute, should we as Redemption Chapel start live streaming? And I don't think so. Listen, is live streaming the same as going to church? Like, is it just, well, look, Rick, I mean, now that we have this technology, this is 2019 now, and this is the new iteration of what it means to be in church. We can just phone it in. Well, interestingly, the technology they had back in that day was written letters. And Paul's writing these letters, and they're getting circulated, and the answer wasn't just, hey, get a hold of one of Paul's letters and read it. No. You were supposed to go to your local church, assemble as a body of believers, receive teaching, and worship together. Even with the tech they had back then, you were supposed to still go. Even with the tech we still have now, or new tech we have, you're still supposed to assemble together. Why? Let's work back through that list. There is public teaching. Public teaching is you're receiving it along with your brothers and sisters together, but there's also leadership. One of the things that happens when people just live stream services is there is much less a sense that they are actually under a local church's authority. They are under local elders' authority. Nah, I don't want that. Jettison that. I'll just watch it online. See that? You miss out on that. Baptism and communion, ordinances. They don't happen in live streaming. You don't get virtual communion, okay? What about prayer? Prayer is, now it doesn't happen as much in our Sunday morning services, but that is the gateway to get involved in small group. I'll talk about that in a sec. And there, you're praying for others and they're praying for you. You don't get that live streaming. What about worship? Listen, let's be honest. When you live stream a service and you're just in your jammies, in your kitchen with your bagel and your coffee, how convenient, love it. I don't have to do all that. You don't worship. I mean, you really like to in that moment, no, you kind of wait till the sermon comes, right? Worship is so essential. And to do it alongside each other, but I feel so awkward because they can hear my voice. Listen, that's part of it. Someone to realize that, yeah, you feel awkward in that moment, but worship isn't about you. Worship's about God. And you know, I've noticed that my mom likes when I go in town. She likes when my brother goes in town. But what she really likes is when both of us and our families are there together, when she has all her babies together, right? You know this. Moms are like this, right? God's like that. God loves his independent children, but he really likes when all his children get around the worship table together at the same time. God is a good parent, and he loves that. So worship, that doesn't happen. Corporate worship doesn't happen live streaming. And then there's fellowship, doesn't happen. Large group and small group, this is the gateway. Like live streaming isn't a gateway to get in small group. But then there's also the large group experience. Like that's not really happening. You're not in a group, you're on your own. And then there's giving. A lot of times that goes significantly down when somebody shifts into a live streaming environment. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. And then mission, adding to their number. Like, so you're going to start to invite people into your kitchen on Sunday mornings when you're in your PJs with your coffee and bagel? No, you don't invite people to join you at church anymore. You're live streaming. You see that? So it all starts to erode. And what I think we end up with is we end up with a consumer culture, not a discipleship culture. The reason why I love live streaming is it's just so convenient for me. And look, you need to get into discipleship. Discipleship is messy. Sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes it's inconvenient. But it's really what God has for you. You need it. You need it. So I want you to shun some things that sometimes come with a live streaming environment. Things like arrogance. I think I know better than them and I don't want to go be under their leadership. That's arrogance. That's rebellion. Like don't feed that. Or what about things like convenience? Oh, this is just so much more convenient. When did you pick up from the Bible that discipleship grows in the culture of convenience? What about greed? Like if I go, I feel like I have to give. I don't want to give. Okay, greed. You're not supporting your local church and in God's kingdom and his ministry. Like not good. Or what about selfishness? This is just what I want. This is how I want it. So don't go with an environment of arrogance and rebellion and greed and convenience and selfishness. That's not good. That's not good. All right. So no, Redemption Chapel has no plan to live stream our services anytime soon. Granted, we record our sermons and we put them online. Here's why. Because if you're out of town or you're on vacation or you're sick and you miss a sermon, we go through books of the Bible a lot and we don't want you to miss out. We want you to keep up. So yeah, we put those on. They usually get up there like Tuesday at the latest and you can stay up with the preaching series. Great. But we don't want to put a whole worship service out there so that you don't check that box and think somehow you're good. No, this is kind of like an exception. You're sick, you're on vacation, you're out of town for work, whatever. Great, keep up with the service. But we're probably not going to live stream anytime soon. All right. Last thing I want to deal with then is, what about other churches? So-and-so's church live stream, does that mean they're in sin? No. No, they're not in sin. Not at all. We think it's unwise. That's why we don't do it this way. They think we're unwise and that they're wise. That's why they do it their way. Let's just call it like it is. That's okay. We have a difference on this. We love them. And it's probably a great church. And that's why they're live streaming. We think it's unwise. And so we're not going to do it. We don't think it's healthy. But they're a great church. Let's not diss other churches, okay? In fact, we think God's kingdom is so much bigger than us. One of my fears is sometimes churches can get into live streaming because they think they're it. And everybody needs to go to their church. And if you're too far away, here's our church. So we think Christ's kingdom is broad and glorious. And he's got lots of good churches. And so my encouragement to you, listen, if you watch our sermons online and you enjoy them and they supplement your Christian discipleship, wonderful. But by no means should you ever use that as a replacement for church. You need to go get under a local church authority, a local pastor, be a part of that church, bless that church, receive from that church. Don't use our sermons as a replacement for church. It's not church. It's just a message, right? Okay, so we love other churches and we encourage you to be a part of them. And even if that church live streams, we love them. They're okay with us. That's why we probably won't be live streaming anytime soon. That's a lot more than that question because I had to build a foundation of why church is important, and that's why we don't live stream. Hope that helps you. Love you guys. Blessings to you in 2019.